Hi, welcome to the It's Time for Breakthrough podcast, where we dive into topics on freedom and inner healing, all from the perspective of staying connected to yourself, to others, and to the Lord, and knowing that right here, right now, it really is time for breakthrough. I'm your host, Casalee, and let's jump right in. Hi guys, welcome back to the It's Time for Breakthrough podcast. I'm your host, Casalee, and today I am here with a person I am so excited to be here with. This is nonetheless the Vivi Ware.
Wow.
And let me tell you about Vivi Ware. Not only is Vivi Ware literally the lover of Jesus that I get to know and love, but Vivi also runs all of our social media. Mm-hmm. All the newsletters you get to read with wisdom and joy is all Vivi. Everything you see on our social media. That's you, baby.
That's me.
That's you. Vivi and I are also best friends.
We are.
So that's why I'm so excited today to get to talk about friendship.
Yes.
And friendship wounds.
Fun.
Scary.
Terrifying.
But fun.
Yeah.
Healthy community.
We
what
love
is
it.
that like?
Yeah.
And just all things under that umbrella. And so, Vivi, who are you?
Yeah.
Who is Vivi Ware?
Who am I? Great question. So, yeah, like Cass said, my name is Vivi Ware. I'm from the state of West Virginia originally, but I moved out to...
The state, not the western side of Virginia. Not just the western side of Virginia, the actual state of West Virginia.
But I moved out here to Reading in September of 2021 to do BSSM. And so I got hired on at the Transformation Center September 2022 to be the social media coordinator. So everything that you see on social media, all the newsletters, all the blogs, all of that is me. But yeah, I just love Jesus, and I have known him my entire life, and I've been a Christian since I was a little teeny tiny girl, and have always never known a day without him. And so, yeah, I'm really, really passionate about connection. I'm really passionate about healthy community, healthy family, and so it's an honor to be talking about this with my best friend today.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm really excited.
Oh my gosh, this is going to be so much fun.
I know, I'm excited.
I love it. Let's just jump right in. Let's talk about, we'll share a little bit both on our stories with community, but Vivi, why don't you go ahead and start? Like, what has been your history with community? What do you think? What is your gut reaction when you hear the word community?
So I think when I think about community, honestly, community's has been challenging for me. It's not always been something that's been easy. It's not something that came naturally to me. When I was a little girl, my parents decided to homeschool me when I was going into 5th grade. And so my world kind of got flipped upside down, and a lot of my built-in community was taken away. And it's not a bad thing, but it was an interesting transition that happened. And so I think for me, community was something I felt I had to work at. It didn't come naturally to me. And I always was like, well, but everyone else has an easy time making friends. Why is it so hard for me? Like, why does it seem like I can't connect with people? All of these different things. And so when I was in middle school and high school, I really didn't have a ton of friends. I struggled to find where I fit. I struggled to actually make meaningful connections and go deep and let them last. Like, they would be really good for a minute, and then something would happen, and it would be like, like they would just all blow up and then dissipate. And so really until I came to BSSM, I didn't have any really long-lasting relationships. A lot of my friendships ended after like 6 or 8 months. Yeah. And so I didn't really know what healthy community was or what it looked like until I moved out here, and then kind of got thrown in this pool of hundreds of people from all over the world, different backgrounds, and it was like community was kind of forced upon me. Yeah. But even being here, I was like, how do I find the right people for me? I'm like, there's so many great options of people to be friends with, but how do I actually find the people that are life-giving to me and that are actually going to love me for me and support me and challenge me, all of those things. And so, community's not always been easy. Yeah. But yeah, that's just kind of a little bit of my history.
I love it. I love how it's the journey of navigating who am I alone, but who am I with people? Yeah. And how can you be both and have them both in a healthy way.
Exactly.
And I think that was part of my journey. A lot of, I've always been the extrovert. Like, I've always been the one that's like, put me in a crowd of people and I will entertain. I will say all the things. I'll ask all the questions. And I found, like, even when I was a little girl, like, it was me, my mom, and my sister. And my sister's 8 years older than me. And so naturally, that's just more of a challenge of, my sister was listening to Usher and Chris Brown. And I was like, I want to be cool and listen to stuff. My mom was like, no, like, you're a child.
You're literally an infant.
You're an infant. So maybe not.
Yeah.
And I watched my sister have all these friends, and then I had friends that I grew up with that were great. It was more, all of my friendships throughout, like, elementary school and middle school and high school were all mostly out of convenience of, we're in the same class. We've been in the same class for so long. Like, our parents are friends, things like that. And I found when I was in high school, I moved schools and then started going to church because I got saved when I was 16. And I found myself in this church and with all of these people for the very first time, and with leaders who were like, we want to know you. Yeah. And I was like, what do you mean you want to know me?
I don't know what that means.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah.
And I found myself in this space of, oh, wait, they want actually Casalee. They don't just want, like, the poster child that I've made myself to be. And so I realized very quickly that I couldn't hide in that community.
Terrifying.
It was so scary. Yeah. And I found, and it revealed something I didn't even know that I had been hiding for so long, that I had been I'd been putting on this facade of, hey, you can know what, to me, because I had an interesting background growing up, which you know, but like, I was like, you can know something that to you would feel super vulnerable, but to me is just scratching the surface. And I found myself doing this, like, false dance with vulnerability where everyone else thought I was being vulnerable, but I was like, you actually know nothing about me. And when I got into this new community, I found they were like, okay, and like, what else? And I was like, what do you mean? No one else had asked me more questions. And so it took me on this journey that even coming to BSSM, because then I did 3 years of university and found myself in spaces where I was like, wait, people actually want to know me. And not just the girl who entertains, but the girl who cries in her room, and the girl who has bad days and isn't the one that always has it all together. And so that took me on a journey throughout college, and then going into BSSM at BSSM, if you're not a BSSM person, that's okay. But let me tell you something about BSSM. They throw you in a room with like 1,000 people, and they're like, you're going to run together. You're going to go pursue the Lord together. And it's a vulnerability, like, mosh pit.
Literally.
Where you walk in, and we talk about this too sometimes, and we're like, I know your deepest, darkest secret, but I don't know if you have siblings.
Yeah. Like, what's your favorite color?
What's your favorite color?
What's your middle name? Like, I don't know any of these things about you, but I know what happened to you when you were 6 years old. Like,
so BSSM creates this beautiful space of vulnerability, but it also challenges everything in you. And so we could talk all day just about that kind of stuff, which we are kind of here to do. Yeah. Which is beautiful. I think let's dive into some questions of just around that, and we'll jump into things as they come. But how did you recognize when your community or friendships weren't necessarily healthy, or we'll use the term like not serving you anymore in the meaning of like, these aren't actually giving me life anymore? Yeah. Because you were saying like a lot of your friendships lasted like 6 to 8 months. And so how did you know, was that a natural transition out? What kind of happened with that when you were like, this has to end in that kind of way? Yeah.
I think it was different depending on the relationship. One example that I'll give is I had this friend when I was younger. We became friends when we were like, I don't know, like 8 or 9 years old. And we were friends for a hot minute. We were friends until we were probably about 14. And around that time, I really started pursuing God, and she pulled back. And when we would hang out together, I would leave feeling drained, or I would leave feeling like icky, or like just, there would be like off feelings when we would hang out together. Like I didn't leave feeling full. I didn't leave feeling full of joy. I didn't leave happy. I left feeling exhausted.
Yeah.
And I was watching a lot of the decisions that we were both making, and I was like, they're not leading us down the same path anymore.
Yeah.
Whereas for a long time we were both headed in like similar directions. We were both pursuing the same things. We were very like-minded, but our priorities had shifted.
Yeah.
And what was important to me was no longer important to her, and what was important to her was no longer important to me. Yeah. And it was kind of this like natural separation of like, instead of hanging out every day, we just started hanging out less and less and less and less and less. And to this day, there's like no ill will between me and this girl. Like, we are totally chill. Like, there was never anything that happened where it was like a really abrupt ending of like no fallouts, nothing like that. But it was just this like natural progression. And I think that me recognizing the difference in the two of us and just our like where things had shifted honestly just kind of helped me like be like, okay, I actually have to pursue something else, and it doesn't necessarily include her. And it was painful because I mean, she was my best friend, and we had been friends for like 5 years and all of these different things. And so, but it was I know now that I had made that decision with God, even though I didn't realize it at the time. I was like, I knew that that there was something else, and that there was actually a different path for me to walk down. And that difference, that shift of priorities really showed me, and just how I felt of like, I don't even feel like I can be fully myself with her anymore. I don't feel like I can, it just didn't feel, I didn't feel permission to be seen or heard in that space. And it wasn't anything that she had done. It was just that we're two different people, and we just didn't mesh anymore. And I mean, there are obviously seasonal relationships. There are relationships that are for life, and then there are relationships that are just for seasons. And during the season of life that we were friends, I needed her. Like, I needed her to be there to support me. I needed her to have fun with. I needed her for connection, like all of those different things. And then right around the same time that she shifted out, I shifted into some other relationships that were more like-minded. We were kind of, our priorities lined up, all those different things. And so God was really kind in that process, even though that it was hard to lose that friendship. He brought in some other people. But then there's other moments where I'm like, I'll become friends with someone, and this is a pattern in my life that God and I are talking about. God and I have done a lot of work to not be like this. But I've struggled a lot with just being really judgmental. And like perfectionism and all of these things that are not beautiful and not a part of the kingdom. But like, as I got older and I got closer to the Lord, I actually got more uppity, and just struggled a lot to love people love imperfect people. Which is a wild thing to even say, because I was definitely imperfect. Like, I'm like, I had my own issues that I was walking through, but I'm like, as I got older, I started to see all of these different things in people. But I'm like, I had a great gift of discernment, but I don't think I stewarded it well. And so I saw all of these like things that people were walking through, and I was walking through too, but I felt like I couldn't be friends with them because they had all this stuff. And so honestly, it was kind of a self-sabotage thing where I walked through these different relationships and then they would end. But but I was also afraid to be seen. Like, I was actually afraid to be known, because I'm like, oh my gosh, like they have this problem, I have this problem. If I'm reacting to them having this issue, how are they going to react to me having this issue? And so I literally I would close myself off and wouldn't actually let myself be known and seen by people. And looking back, I'm like, people wanted to know me, right? They actually wanted to get to know me. They wanted to be my friend, all of these things. But there was all these like lies circling in my thought processes of like, oh, if they really knew, they wouldn't actually want to be friends with you. And so I think on the positive side, I knew when things weren't life-giving, and I knew that based on how I felt, it was time to leave. But then also on the negative side, I hid when I could feel that stuff coming up, instead of actually pushing in and pursuing connection.
And even us being friends has pushed all of the buttons of past things that we have,
all the triggers,
like, worked through. And it's like, I was in a class with a couple that used to be revival group pastors here at BSSM, and they talked about they're mainly talking about in the context of marriage, but also just in relationships of oftentimes when you get close to people, you're close and then you have a wound, but they have a wound and you're just sitting there like rubbing each other's wounds and it's uncomfortable. There have been moments in our friendship where we're like, everything you're doing is triggering me right now. I'm so scared. And in that we've made a conscious decision of, no, I'm choosing this. And I think there are moments to say, Lord, is this something to walk away from? And because it's going to continue to trigger and lead unto something that's not healthy. Or is this a moment for me to, is this something you want to use for healing where I can push through this to then receive breakthrough on the other end, and in that still have this connection? And when I was in first year, I came in and I was like, I don't know how to be friends with anyone. I don't know how to let people love me. Like, a lot of my story was just letting people actually coexist with me and love me. And I didn't want people to do anything for me. I didn't want anybody to even mention that my birthday was coming. And I remember a situation happened with some friends in first year, and the Lord said, hey, Cassie, you can either lay down and let me deal with this, and you can hurt for a minute and actually feel the pain that they're causing you, or you can put a smile on your face and you can walk away and you can do exactly what you've done every other time. Because it was a situation that had happened to me multiple other times in my past. And the Lord was like, you can either let me fix your heart, or you can get up and walk out fine, but still have that pain in you and be undealt with. And so I made the decision when I was in first year with this specific situation. To me, it felt like I was pouting, and that I was like, I don't want anybody to throw me a pity party. I don't want anybody, because it felt embarrassing. Like, the situation brought up all these feelings of, I'm alone, I feel embarrassed, I feel rejected, all of this stuff. And the Lord's like, I can deal with it if you'd like. Or you can walk around with pain and wounds on your heart and just let it happen again. And so in that, I let the Lord deal with it. And I went to class, cried most of the day, every day. And felt the weight of the situation for the first time. Again, a situation that had happened at least 3 to 4 times before in my past. And watched it happen again, and I was like, God, there's no way that you would do this again. And he's like, it's only happening because I want to heal you. And it brought up so many other feelings of, it was just the icing on the cake of deep wounds the Lord wanted to heal. And in community, you bring up other things where I'm like, okay, Vivi didn't do anything, but when you said that, you reminded me of that one phrase my mom said to me when I was 7 years old. How would you know that? You wouldn't. And so community is actually designed to push us unto freedom even more, and unto more breakthrough if we let it. If we don't let it, we can walk around being not known, not seen, not loved unto our full capacity, because you can love the surface of me but not love the depth of me, and it's actually not producing any fruit.
And like you said this, but I'm like, this was the pattern in my life, is I would actually reject myself first before I gave the people a chance to reject me. And so I'm like, let me just hide myself so that you don't actually know what's happening
you
internally.
Don't get to reject me.
You don't get to reject me. I'm protecting myself. I'm like, let me just distance myself, push myself away so that you actually can't hurt me. But I'm actually hurting myself in the process. And like you said, people are actually designed to bring healing to us. Like, the Lord puts characteristics of himself in people to bring us healing and to bring us, like, letting people love us, letting people see us, letting people know us. And it's absolutely terrifying. Like, for example, we literally just had a moment, like,
a week ago
where I was like, I feel really triggered. And I just kind of, like, just was telling her how I was feeling. And in the past, like, had I done that, I don't think that it would have been received that well. I'm like, I could have said all of those things, but one, I didn't know how to communicate exactly how I was feeling. And two, like, I was absolutely terrified of what the other person was going to say. And
other person being me.
Other person being Cass. And I'm like, I'm bringing up all of these things that are real. And I told her, I was like, it's not even anything that you've done, but this is how I'm feeling, and this is how my mind is reacting. This is what my mind is telling me.
Yeah.
And it was really beautiful because Cass got to come in and speak truth and got to come in and cover me and be like, hey, like, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not afraid of your emotions. I'm not afraid of what you're feeling. And that was just, it was so healing to me, but it required me to get really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
It required me to become vulnerable. It actually required me to risk and put myself out there. There was a chance for me to be rejected, but like, if we want to be fully loved, we have to risk being rejected. Like, it's impossible to be fully loved without actually putting yourself in a place to be hurt.
Yep.
But it's not an easy thing by any means. It definitely requires taking a step of a leap of faith and taking a risk.
Yeah. And it's like something I think about when I try to run away from community is like God himself is a 3-in-1. God, Jesus, and the Holy, like the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are in community. What makes us think
that we can do
that we can do it without community?
Yeah.
We were literally designed to not be alone.
Yeah.
And I think there's a difference. I'd love for you to chat about this too, because you're an introvert.
Big time.
I am an extrovert to my maximum part of myself. But I also realized something about you are not your personality type.
Yeah.
In any way, shape. Like, it is a good indicator. It's a good guide. It is an awful master.
Yeah.
I love the Enneagram. I love a good Myers-Briggs. Like, I love all of the things that are trending. It's wonderful. But it is an awful way of, if you use it to protect yourself,
totally,
you gotta sit with the Lord on that one, because there's so many things with that. But I think in me being an extrovert, I actually found I was not as extroverted as I thought I was. I was just hiding behind being the attention, being the one to entertain, to being the one with all of the stories. And I found out, I was actually just afraid of being alone. So my fear of being alone was masked by me being an extrovert. And it was awful, because at the end of the day, while people give me energy, I would go home and still feel so deeply alone.
Yeah.
And so then I went on this process of actually being like, oh, God challenged me, and he was like, Cass, I want you to go into this group, like into the room with your group of friends, and I want you to say nothing. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean, God? Like, what is that? How do I even do that? Because I had no idea how to even just be. And he taught me how to listen to people better, not to listen to respond, but or not to listen to be the next thing to say, but to actually listen to them, to hear them. And it helped me love people better, because I didn't even realize me not being my full self was not allowing other people to be their full self.
Literally.
For us to have this full connection. And so how have you navigated the difference between being alone, of just like, I get to be by myself, and being lonely? Because there's a lot of times where, even as an extrovert, I walk into a room full of people that I love, and I'm like, I feel so lonely.
Yeah.
Let's chat.
Man, I'm the other extreme of that, right? So I can be by myself and be completely fine.
Yeah.
But like, I'll walk into a room and immediately want to hide. I'm like, don't look at me. Don't talk to me. Don't ask me anything about myself. Like, I'm totally fine sitting in the back row, sitting in the corner. Like, I'm here because I have to be, not because I want to be.
Yeah.
And I'm like, but like you said too, me not showing up shortcuts people from being able to show up fully. And so I think one thing that, oh man, this is an interesting question to answer. I'm like, I've definitely felt lonely before, even though I'm an introvert and I love being alone. And I think that it comes from going back to, am I letting myself be seen and known by people, even in like just smaller settings, even in big group settings? Like, what does it actually look like for me to be known? What does it look like for me to come fully as myself? How do I do that? And I think, like that time I was talking to you about when I was in like when I was like, from the ages of like 15 to 17, I was so lonely, but I wasn't letting myself be seen. I wasn't letting myself be known. And I was chalking it up to, oh, I'm just an introvert.
Yeah.
I don't like being around people. I'm recharged by myself. There's a truth to that, but there's also a reality that I actually need people. I need people to pour into me. I need people to know me. And I need people to speak truth into me. And so I go to the extreme of hiding myself and just shutting myself off. And again, like, if I'm having a bad moment, if I'm having a bad day, like, nobody gets to see that. Like, I don't want people to know. And I struggled a lot with performance and feeling like I needed to, have it all together, because if I didn't have it all together,
the world's gonna
fall apart. I don't actually love Jesus if I'm sad. Like, I don't love, like, all of these different things. And I struggled so much with, like, believing the lie that if people really knew what I was walking through, that they would not want to be around me. That if people actually knew what was happening in my brain, if they knew what my thought processes were, if they knew what my heart was feeling, if they knew how bitter I really was, if they knew how sad I really was, that they wouldn't want, so I would shut myself off. But I actually needed people to come in and speak truth in those ways. And Jesus put himself into community, right? Like, Jesus was surrounded by his 12. Jesus had his 12 disciples. He was constantly doing community with them. And then he had his, like, inner circle of 3 that he really trusted. I think it was 3. Yeah. Peter, John, and what was the third one?
That's great. We're Bible school students. I can't remember.
He had 3 disciples that he really pulled in for everything. But he also had time where he went to be with the Father. And he was just alone. And so one thing that God really challenged me in was, like, asking him. Because my first default is to go to God with things, which is beautiful. We need to. Don't hear me say that, the opposite of that. Like, we need to be able to process our emotions. We need to be able to process all the stuff with God. But there are times when God pushes and said, hey, I actually want you to go tell that person this. Like, oh, you have beef with the person? Go tell them. Like, and it says in scripture, like, if you've got anger with a brother, you need to go talk to the brother. And for me, that was the hardest part, was like, I'll just deal with it with God. Oh, just me and him. Just me and Jesus. Beautiful. Me, Jesus, and people. Like, it needs to be all 3. And I really, really struggled to bring people in and really, like, even just tell people. And I remember, like, even with my family, like, telling my parents, telling my siblings, like, I come from a big family. I've got 3 younger siblings. And so, but I can hide so easily. I can hide so easily, even in a room that's full of people. And even by myself, like, I can hide myself from myself. And so I think what part of the process was, okay, you can talk about it with God all day long, but can you be real with you, and can you be real with people? And so that's been part of my journey, is navigating, when is it something that I talk about with God, and when is it something that I talk about with people? When do I need covering from people? When do I need support from people? Versus when do I just need to be with the Lord and let him strengthen me and let him be the source of life? But then there are times where God calls me to tell someone else. And that's terrifying.
It was so scary, because it's like, we hear the phrase, like, God is enough for me. God is enough.
Which,
like,
yes,
he is.
Should be.
And in him being enough, he pushes you often. God gave us resources outside of himself, but they're also from him and of him. So, like, God gave us our friendship. Like, there would be, other than us both saying yes to BSSM and Jordan DeMarco. Thank you, Jordan.
We love Jordan DeMarco.
Jordan both putting us in his revival group. And really, like, God narrowed down the way of, we knew of each other in first year. We're in the same revival group in second year. We can't run from this. And in that, God created an opportunity of us to be friends. And it isn't that. We make things sound so spiritual sometimes. It's like, we chose to be friends because we wanted to be friends.
Exactly.
And God just is in that, because he loves the desires of our heart.
He loves friendship.
He loves friendship. Like, and in that, I think I learned so much about not only God being a father, but also God being a friend, in the midst of navigating my friendship wounds. I had most of my friendship wounds, a lot of them were healed with when I would sit with the Lord and he would speak and he would be my friend. Yeah. And then there were a lot of them where the Lord was like, for this to really get redeemed, because it wasn't just I needed healing, I needed redemption. Yeah. I needed redemption for the times that my friends, I would walk in a room and they would pretend I wasn't there. I needed redemption from the fact that I would do X, Y, and Z and my friends would respond a certain way. I didn't just need healing, I actually needed full redemption with people. And so if I have a friendship wound, how do I get redemption for that? I risk my whole heart in friendship. And so in that, I found that healthy community actually redeemed so much of my things. And even now, like, I wouldn't say I'm afraid of friendships now. If you would have asked me probably a year and a half ago, I would have said, I'm terrified of being in a room with people and being fully seen and fully known and fully loved, because it's risky. Yeah. But it's also the fruit of that is there's such a great reward of being in a room with people where you're like, I can come fully as me. And like, if you're listening to this and you feel like you can't walk into a room and fully be alive, I would say evaluate the people that are around
100%.
you. Because it could be you that you're hiding yourself, like what Vivi has talked about a lot, of like you hiding yourself from being fully seen and known and loved. Or it could be that you should evaluate who you're letting speak into your life. Yeah. Because there are people that I'm like, I want you to love me and I want us to connect, but you only get to speak to a certain part of my life. Yeah. Like if I'm making a big decision, there are few people outside of the Lord that get to know the process of that decision and get to sit with me in it. And then there are the level of people that get to know that decision once it's already been made. Right. And I think we have both talked about this in our normal life, of the difference between being vulnerable and being transparent. Big difference. There's such a difference. Yeah. And I think someone changed the game for me. One of my mentors told me when I was in university, she was like, Cass, you have done this your whole life. You think you're being vulnerable, but you're really just being transparent. And I was like, ouch. Yeah. That's hard. And she explained she said, being transparent looks like you have a museum of your life and you're just walking people through the art gallery, the museum. You're showing them the sculptures. You're telling them the background. You're telling them who, what, when, where, why. And vulnerability is actually letting people sit in your living room when you have takeout boxes for the past week on the floor. You haven't done laundry in 2 weeks. Your hair's a mess. You haven't showered in days. That's vulnerability. And it shifted the gear for me of, even you said this earlier, of I wouldn't let people know when I'm in something. It's always after. Yeah. And so in that, for me, it started with when I would feel something. If I felt a big emotion, the way I worked through that was immediately, I'm like, who do I trust? Who has not just proven themselves, because it's not about performance, but it was like, I give people a certain amount of trust immediately. Right. And then if that needs to shrink back, then it does. But it's like, it can only grow or shrink from here. Yeah. It's not, you start with nothing with me, because I don't think that's super healthy. I think it breeds performance. Yeah, totally. And so in that, I was like, if you were doing it on a scale of like 1 to 10, you have level 10 trust with me. You may not know everything about me, but I trust you. Yeah. And in that, it can only grow or get smaller from here. And so in the midst of, I found people, I'm like, okay, who do I trust? If a big emotion would come up, I'd immediately go, okay, God, hi, hello, Jesus, I'm feeling this. Yeah. What's going on? And then I'd look at the person next to me, and the person that I trust, and I'd be like, hey, I'm feeling, something just happened. I'm feeling really rejected. I just wanted you to know. Yeah. And that gave them an opportunity to be like, oh, I don't care. Yeah. Or, because that's what people had done to me in the past. And I think in that, I was like, hey, I feel really rejected. I just wanted you to know. And 9 out of 10 times, they would always meet me with, okay, what can I do? Yeah. What do you need from me? What is how can I make you feel loved? Or they would just do something because they knew me. And so then they would make me feel loved. And so in that, I found that there was that redemption of when people would meet me with rejection. After I just communicated, I feel rejection. Yeah. People would come to me with love. And it was only because they knew me. Right. And knew what I needed. And there are different ways. I'd love for you to speak on how you've navigated that kind of situation of actually letting people in again. And just how do you learn how to even trust people again? Because there's often the fear of, if it's been like a specific thing of, oh, I'm afraid they're going to do the same thing to me that everybody else has done before. Yeah. How have you seen in your life, Vivs, where you've jumped over that hurdle, taken that risk, and what does that practically look like with steps and also just with the Lord? Yeah, totally.
I immediately thought of this example, and last year in second year, I had this mentor, but she was the same age as me, and so I thought she was so cool, but I was terrified of her because I was like, in the past, I would see a girl or a guy or whatever, and I'd be like, you're so cool, I want to be friends with you. Yeah. And I would like try to put myself in situations to like get to know them, and I would immediately be shut down, immediately be rejected of like, oh, you can't stay with us, like that thing from Mean Girls. Of like, oh, you're not actually up to the level that we need you to be, like you're not cool enough, essentially. And I pushed myself away from her for a long time. I was like, well, I won't get to know her then. I won't, out of like self-protection and out of the fear that the same thing was going to happen, that she was going to reject me. And I would literally for like, so in the way the BSSM works, you have a mentor that's assigned to you, and you're supposed to meet with them once a month for like, just to check in. I did not meet with her until halfway through the school year. I refused. And I was like, nope, like you don't get to know me. I don't want to talk to you. I'm terrified. Yeah. And I remember January rolling around, and I knew God was like, you have to meet with her. And I was like, oh, I don't want to. Like, that makes me want to throw up thinking about it. But he was like, Vivi, if you want something to change, you actually have to step out and make it change. Like, there's actually a partnership here. Because he's like, because he brought so much healing to my heart in first year of like friendship wounds, and actually discovering the way that Jesus was a friend to me, and how Jesus chooses me. Jesus loves me just as I am. Jesus doesn't reject me. All of these things. He brought so much of that healing, but I actually needed the full circle redemption moment to happen. And he was reminding me of this, and I was like, okay. So I reached out to her, and I was like, hey, can we get coffee? Hey, girl. Terrifying to put myself on a limb like that. Like to step over the line and put myself in a position to be rejected. Yeah. And she was... And in that, it's like oftentimes people have no idea. No idea. She wouldn't have known that. She does, like, people don't know that you're scared. No. And I found that, like, there was a situation really quick of me and this girl, and I thought she was so cool. Yeah. And I was like, I want to be friends with her so bad. And I remember there was one night we were at the same like party for a friend, and we were in a situation, and I was like, I just want to be your friend. Can we be friends? And she was like, I want to be your friend. Yeah, literally. And it was met with like the equal excitement. And now we're friends. Yeah. And it was just that easy. And so continue. Yeah. It's just, most of the time they don't even know. No. And they also probably want to be your friend. That's how our story happened. That's literally how our story went. But I texted her, and I was like, hey, like I know we've been trying to meet for months. No, I've been avoiding for months. But I was like, okay, let's just do this. And we met, and it was such a fruitful time. Yeah. Like I remember her saying like, I think you're amazing. Like, she just spoke so much truth into me. And she's like, I've been wanting to meet forever, like all of these different things. And it like broke something in me, because I was like, what do I actually have to be afraid of? Yeah. Nothing. I literally like the scariest thing is the initial step out. Yeah. But if you can do that, if you can just take that first step of like that first initial risk, everything else is going to be really simple. And so, but like we're friends now, and it became this like beautiful back and forth relationship and this beautiful friendship of give and take. And it was terrifying initially, but it actually ended up being so beautiful, and being so redemptive. And so many of my relationships in the past 3 years have been that way. Just like letting people see me, letting people know me, and them actually choosing me back. Yeah. And like, because I'm like, I'm choosing to let you see me, will you choose me? Yeah. And so, but it's been such a beautiful, redemptive, healing journey of people actually choosing me back. Yeah. Because I am like, I will love you hardcore. Yeah. Like I love with my whole heart, but I wouldn't let people love me with their whole heart. And so it's been that, like, that's been...
And in that, I think we're talking a lot about taking risk, but I think there's a moment where you have to let the Lord do the initial healing before you begin to take risk. Because often what I've seen is now, if there's a girl that I'm like, I want to be friends with you so bad. And it's like, some things are just situational that they just don't work. Yeah. And I was like, hey, let's hang out. And I did like a few, hey, let's hang out. Hey, let's do this. And then nothing ever happened. And so I was like, okay, maybe we can be like, hey, see you around, friends. I'm like, I love her. She's an amazing person, but we'll just leave it at that. Yeah. And she knows, like, if I ever need Cass, I can call Cass. And I'm like, if I ever need her, I can call her. And that's just about the extent of our relationship. And so, but if I would have done that without allowing the Lord to do the initial healing of my heart and that me sitting piece with him and fixing that identity piece, it would have crushed me. Right. It would have just continued to feed the rejection. But now I'm like, oh, I'm okay. Like, it's not I don't need you. Yeah. It's not a like pride. It's not a gut reaction. Yeah. It's just okay, you have your circle of close friends in this season of our life, and that is fantastic. Yeah. And when I see you around, we'll love on each other, and that's great. But when we're not gonna hang out outside of situations. Yeah. And so if you're like, oh, I should take a risk. Yeah. Yes, you should. But first, check with the Lord.
How's
and be
your
like,
heart doing?
God, is there any part of me that needs to be healed before I go for redemption? Exactly. And let him do that. Like, and sometimes, like, it's the process that me and Peter Mattis talked about this on another episode, but that process of the instantaneous and the process of sometimes God can heal and it's immediate and it's a miracle, and he could do that with you with your friendship wounds, or he's like, I actually want to take you on a journey. Yeah. And so I think if the Lord says, we need to fix some stuff before you start jumping off out of a plane with no parachute. Yeah. Because your healed identity is like your parachute. Right. I'm going to jump out of the plane. I'm going to fall back into my parachute. It's going to be me and the Lord. I'm doing just fine with him. Yeah. But I also recognize the need for community and need for other people. And so in that, I would love for us to talk about some practicals really quick of what are some practical steps, like we just talked about, go to the Lord, see what needs to be healed, but what are some ways that you can cultivate healthy community and healthy friendships that help heal those wounds? We've talked about vulnerability, risk, all these things. Yeah. What are some other things that come to your mind when you think of cultivating healthy community? Yeah.
You have to put yourself out there. Yeah. And I'm ironic to be the one saying that because I am the queen of not putting myself out there. Yeah. But you actually do have to put yourself in positions to meet people. You have to put yourself in places to, like, because if you're like, I'm so alone, I have no friends, but you never leave your house.
Yeah. Same with dating.
We're not talking about that. That's a different episode, but it's like you actually have to put yourself into positions to make friends and like join the small groups, join the young adult group, like put yourself in positions to be around other people, other like-minded people, other people of your age, like put yourself in, like, not limiting who can become your really close friend. Yeah. And not putting a box around the type of friendship that God wants to give you.
Yeah. Because he can surprise you.
He can so surprise you.
I'm like left corner kind of move.
I'm 20 years old, okay? And some of my closest all of my closest friends are older than me, right?
Yep.
And so, like, one of my really good friends is 28, and another one of my friends is 24. And so it's like, for me, I was like, okay, well, who's my age? Who's in my demographic? Who has similar backgrounds? No. Who's the friend that God wants to give me?
Yeah.
What are the relationships that God wants to facilitate and develop in my life? And, like, you know, if it's a mom, if she's like, for example, I'm like, I've got women in my life who are 10 plus years older than me, but I highly value them, and I highly value the community that they bring to me and the connections that we have. And I'm like, on paper, this doesn't make any sense. Yeah. But it's God. Yeah. And I think that putting yourself in the positions to actually make the friends and not limiting what God wants to bring you, because it's really easy to assume the type of friends that the Lord wants you to have. And, like, honestly, you're not the type of friend that I would have gone for.
Thank you so much. That's a common theme in my life. My best friend throughout college, we were roommates. She's literally was the most introverted person I've ever met in my life. Yeah. And I remember chasing her. We met because of another friend that we both knew separately. We met, and in her mind she said, she's really cool, talking about me. She's really cool, but I will never be friends with her. And then I chased her up the stairs of our dorm building, and I said, hey, do you want to get coffee and go thrifting? And she was like, sure. Yeah. And then that started, we ended up living together because we both changed roommates after a little bit in the first semester of uni. And she was like, you are not my first pick of friend. And I'm like, you know what? That's okay. That's okay. That's okay.
It's just, like, if I would have, like, okay, we've been friends for a little over a year now. Yeah. If we, like, a year and a half ago, I would have put, like, my friend qualifications on paper. A lot of them wouldn't have aligned, but you've brought so much healing to me, but you've challenged me in so many different ways, and you've pulled me out of the box that I was in, and like, you've pushed me. And I think that that's the beautiful thing about a healthy friendship and a healthy relationship, is that there's that, like, we can just chill, we can just have fun, but you also challenge me to grow and go deeper, and you know, you poke me, but in the best way.
Yeah. If all of your friends are letting you / almost like coddling you to be complacent. Yeah. Especially if you're a believer. Like, if your friends are fine with you just never burning for revival again, then you should probably also evaluate your friendships. And also, because I've done the heart work with the Lord, that doesn't offend me that I'm not your friend qualification. Because look, we're besties, and I'm fine. Yeah. We're good. And so I think if you're looking at, like, look at your circle of friends and say, God, say with the Lord on each one of your friends. And it's not a to keep or to not keep. It's God, is this serving my life in this season now? Is this, like, actually feeding and, like, pushing my relationship with you to grow more? Is this helping me with my calling? Is this serving my, like, future family and things that I want to develop? Like, is this feeding my soul? Because there have been friends I've had in the past where I'm like, oh, I love these people, but I felt like I was living a double lifestyle when I was with them. Yeah. And not because I was doing anything much different. I felt just the posture of my heart was different. And I would talk about things that I wouldn't necessarily talk about with you. Like, that wouldn't be our first mode of conversation. Yeah. And it shifted my heart. And I found when I stopped spending so much time with those people, I was like, oh, I actually feel like myself again. Yeah. And I feel fully like myself, and not like a split, almost like a split personality kind of thing. And so practicals in that of sit with the Lord, look at your friends, look at who you're letting speak into your life. Yeah. And see, okay, God, should these people continue to speak into my life, or were they for a season? Because it's a whole other episode to talk about how to navigate change when you're close friends. In this environment, it's so hard because you're like, I've ran with these people wholeheartedly and vulnerably for the last 3 years. What now? Like, if you're a university student, that happened when I was in uni. At the end of 4 years, like, you're living in the same building on the same, like, 1,200 square feet with these people. Yeah. And you're just, all right, move out. Here's your diploma. And you're like, but all of my friends are from all over the country and the world.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? And so navigating, letting the Lord do that inner heart work first before you try to take risks, before you run off to do other things, and seeing where you land. And also something that we've both had to learn in our friendship and others is, when do you come up for air and when do we just have fun?
Yeah.
Like, there are days where I'm like, Vivi, I don't want to talk about anything serious. I don't want to talk about the process. I don't want to talk. Like, we can talk about the fun side of God, but if we go into like travail, we got to come up. Like, this is not a travail moment. This is, we're going to go to Target and we're going to laugh and we're going to go get a sweet treat.
Exactly.
And so I think find people you can have fun with, but also find the people that will let you cry with them.
The both.
And
you need it.
And sometimes friendships, like, you can't get everything you need from one person.
Totally.
Like, if we were trying to, same with like spouses, neither one of us are married yet.
No.
But it's like, you can't find everything you need in one person. And it's, there are some friends to have fun with, there are some friends to travail with, and there's a mix of that in each person. But you need a well-rounded community where you're not becoming codependent or unhealthy. And so, Vivi, do you have any last statements before we close this episode on friendship?
You are worthy of healthy friendship, and you are worthy of healthy community, and you're worthy to be seen and to be known and to be fully loved for who you really are in every state of life that you're in. I wish someone would have told me that. I wish someone would have looked in my eyes and been like, Vivi, you are worthy of friends who you can have fun with. You're worthy of friends who challenge you and push you, but who love you no matter what. And if I could say, if you get nothing else out of this episode, like, you are worthy of really good friendships. And you're worthy of a beautiful community, and it's actually God's heart for you. And he wants to give it to you, and he does have it for you. And so anything that tells you otherwise, like, that's a lie from the pit of hell. Like, you're worthy of such beautiful, fruitful, thriving relationships and friendships. And don't be afraid to sit with God and let him poke in it. Even sitting in the pain of the past relationships, like, it's all unto something really beautiful, and the outcome is always better than what's before.
That's so good. I think run into connection. Of
push into it.
Push, like, uncomfortably run into what would feel like a wall, but it can actually be a place of embrace. And, like, you're worth someone else being inconvenienced. That's what I wish somebody would have told me. And that I'm still learning of, like, it's okay if, because, like, you love me. If I'm like, Vivi, I'm at the lake building, I really need to eat something. I don't have any time. Do you have any time to run and bring me a snack? She's like, of course I'll stop everything that I'm doing and bring you a snack right now. I'll bring you a snack. What do you want? Do you want Chick-fil-A? Do you want? and it's like, even just, I need a coffee and I don't have space, or even just in any kind of way of letting other people be what I would say inconvenience, but they say it's just love. And so
you never know how someone wants to love you until you let them.
No, that's so good. You never know. So let people love you in your best state. And I know we're like talking to each other, like, let me love you. And it's just, there's a beautiful journey that God wants to take all of us on, whether you're starting that journey now or you're 40 years into this journey of letting the Lord guide the way of who to be friends with, when to say yes, when to say no, how to let yourself be fully loved, not just by him, but by people. So it's so scary, but it's always, there's beautiful fruit on the other side of it.
Totally.
We've talked for a long time. We can keep talking. So we'll just close this. Maybe we'll do part 2.
Maybe we'll do part 2.
Maybe.
Talk about it. I also would encourage you, Sozos help a lot. When healing from friendship wounds. And so one thing that I did when pursuing healing in this way is I had a Sozo. And I sat with Jesus and I let him reveal all of it. And because there's sometimes when you need help from other people to actually get the breakthrough that the Lord has for you. So if you're in that place where you're like, I've done it, I've sat with Jesus, I've asked him a million questions and I'm still not seeing any breakthrough, like, come see us. Like, we want to help you.
It's a great segue. So come see us at the Transformation Center. The way you can set all that up is at our website, www.tcbethel.com. There's every information about Sozo, counseling, coaching,
Yeah.
all of the things you can find on our website, and all of our other resources that Vivi produces of the blog, the newsletter, all of those things can be found there. And there's a little start here button in the top right corner.
Yep.
It's pink. So you can click that and start like filling out stuff in order to get a session if that's something you're interested in.
Yeah.
But we hope you enjoyed this episode. We hope you got some beautiful nugget of wisdom from the Lord and from just our stories and experience and sitting around what this feels like what we do every day.
Yeah.
So welcome to our table.
Welcome to our home.
Welcome to our living room. We hope you guys have the best week. Let people love you. Let the Lord love you.
Yep.
Take some risk. And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.